some days. Some weekends it's nothing but chainsaws and beers.
True.
I have another one. Actually, we're doing the married couple test on Saturday.
What in the world is that?
That is going to IKEA together. We're gonna redo the kitchen and junk like that. So
it's funny. My wife, there's no way AK could get me to go to IKEA.
Actually, the Swedish meatballs are not that bad, so it's worth it just to check those out. But in terms of like the entire shopping together experience, we'll see how we do.
I don't know. I just know I'm not a huge fan of the stuff I've gotten from there.
The only thing I bought from there was a mortar and pestle, which I've used like twice in the 3 years that I've had it, but it is pretty cool. It's like a heavy granite, whatever it is, mortar and pestle set. And then, the pasta pot that I got is really nice. It's one of those like click-on lids with the holes in it, so you can just drain it in the pot. It's like, that's convenient.
Oh, so that was like a thing you bought that was basically assembled.
Yeah, it was
not the like IKEA stuff where Kate brings it home and it's like 78 pieces and like 78 or 700 screws.
Oh yeah,
like,
God.
Damn.
Yeah, made the mistake of, well, not the mistake, but we upgraded our family computer so that it could run, because the previous one was so old, and then Ben wanted the old one, so that it's like, okay, sure, where am I gonna put this? Because I don't want him just to have the computer in his room, so it's like we have a computer corner in the living room now, all cramped up together.
Nice. All right, we've been recording. Should we?
Yeah, we should probably do an intro. Though I liked the kind of banter thing in the beginning.
Well, welcome everyone. I'll decide later if I'm gonna share what we just talked about.
That's fine.
The laziness gets in the way.
It does get a little bit in the way. The question is, can your marriage survive a trip to IKEA?
That's true.
That is the question.
So right now I have this Ox Fuzz Hybrid into.
Oh yeah.
Man, it's so fun. It's so fun, like, because you can play like pretty clean, just by rolling your volume back.
That responds unbelievably well. That just sounds like $1 million right there.
It's just so fun.
Dude, that's awesome. What did I do today for fun? Oh, I sight read through the Brower studies. So,
that's fun.
Taking the advice of like, I can sight read through them like the first 10 just because I've played them all a while ago. But I'm getting to a point where like my students are really needing to be educated on them. So it's like, I actually gotta practice these a little bit more besides just reading them when I get to the lesson.
Better get it going.
Yeah, get my crap together. So it's fun. I like it. It's interesting to see like every time I get into that, it's just covering something new that he's doing in a different way.
Yeah. Definitely one of those ones that's worth checking out.
Yep. I've never played those last 10. I think I might try those and learn them, because everybody plays the first 10, but there's another set that aren't so simple that are part of it, and it's like, I should give those a shot. I've been looking for new material, never finishing, always looking. I got to write down these things in order of priority, like finish the arranging, record the arranging. Actually, back that up. Let's put that down a little bit further. Finish the first album that's recorded. Finish editing that, which it is motivating now that we've had that banter back and forth and discovering how to put like a good reverb on it. That trick that my buddy told me of putting that sidechain compressor on the reverb is like, oh my God, now it sounds like a room. Rather than something like washed in it. It's like responsive to what is playing in terms of volume, so when it gets louder, it actually gets more reverb. It's like, oh, that is so wickedly cool. That's what I think I was missing. And that's inspiring me to kind of keep working on the rest. Outside of one track that I might have to re-record, because was just stupid, and I thought I had a take without a buzz, and there's a significant buzz and a super slow part, and it's like, I can't have that. I just can't. I just missed a note and was too stupid to redo it. So really, really annoying, but whatever.
That's what I sent you. I sent you that video today with the vibrato thing, and I think I did like 2 takes or something, because I ended up recording it. I don't know if you could tell. It wasn't coming from the phone video. Yeah. Like I recorded it with this mic, which you can't see right now. And it's like there was one, I took a take or something, and I like biffed a note, or something, whatever it was, and I was like, oh, I can't use that take, I guess. It was like all I was sending you like this 30-second clip.
I know what it's like. It's a matter of picking the best up. Oh man, there's nothing worse than doing a video. I mean, totally just complaining. Where is our list? I'm trying to find our topic list.
So this is just the red plate. God, it's so good.
Where did it go?
Man, we're on fire today.
Yeah, well, that's because I don't have my list in front of my face. I'm trying to find it.
You get to hear a bunch of randomness. Not random this week. On Friday. Finally releasing a Red Side Visible thing and pre-order and all that stuff.
Awesome. This coming week?
This Friday, which is what, the 16th? Actually, I looked up, I Googled, what day of the week should you release the song?
And what did they say?
Well, so apparently the like chart thing or whatever, like if you want to get on the Billboard charts and all that stuff, it's Friday to Thursday. So the best day to do it is Friday for that. But I saw an article, which I have no inclination that I'm going to get on the charts. But they were like, it's not just the best day because of that. Like, it's actually the best day because that's when people listen more or something. So it was,
that makes sense.
Like over the weekend and all that kind of stuff, right? So I don't know. I was like, okay. I just needed like something to tell me what day to pick.
Yeah.
Because I said last week, I'm like, I'm gonna put it out this week. That's what I'm gonna do. But then I'm like, crap, what day do I do it? Because it used to be Tuesdays. Remember that? Tuesdays was on.
Tuesdays was released, and that happened mainly because the big box stores were able to get their shipments on a Sunday, and all the mom and pops would get the shipment on a Monday later on. So they'd have the new item right on Monday morning.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's only fair to be like, well, how about everybody just do it on Tuesday so everybody gets it, and it's a level playing field.
Yeah, like, I think they liked it too because it's like if something happened to the shipment or something, you had an extra day.
It gives you that extra little bounce or of a leeway in the day to take care of whatever else, make sure that it comes in. But I found the list. We have the list, so we're ready to start with Air Metal a little bit more formally. Look out! So these are the
wait. I got some whiplash. Hold on.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. They're getting intense.
Oh, that could have been from the griddle. I think so. It was like it's like 150 pounds.
150 pounds of cooking material. Amazing. Yeah, there it is. So here are our topics as listed on the thing. We have the New York City Jazz Club situation that we never talked about. That would be interesting to dive into. We have Phillip Sayce. Again, we could talk about that. And the Fender copying the custom guitars and trying to sell them after that. And then we got the is the guitar music dying thing. So those are all the topics that we have right now outside of the, banter that we've had in the emails back and forth. But that's, or not emails, but texting. That's mainly been overdrives. And what do you think of this reverb on this? What if I do this? What about that?
Sure. See, let's take on the Sayce thing. That's an interesting topic.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, Phillip Sayce, blues guitarist, a hybridization of Hendrix, Lenny Kravitz. I know Lenny Kravitz isn't blues necessarily, but his voice sounds like Lenny Kravitz to me. Hendrix, Lenny Kravitz, Eric Johnson, and Stevie Ray Vaughan, like all wrapped into one thing.
Yeah, with a little bit more steroids.
Yeah, it was a little bit more steroids, and just a phenomenal. Like it's kind of listening to his live album totally ruined listening to his studio album.
Oh, sure, yeah.
It's just like, man, I mean, he's good in the studio, but the energy level is just nowhere near as what was going on in that live performance. It's just like,
like if you're looking for the sort of epitome in a way of that like blues rock, like over the top, like if you want a Stevie Ray just to like put a little bit more hair on his on his guitar sound and like just a little bit more speed, maybe, or a little bit more like, I don't know if it's not more ferocious than Stevie, because he was already ferocious, but like just a little more of some of those other things. Like that's pretty much the guy. Like that's what you're getting.
Yep. He puts in breakdowns that you don't expect. Like in typical blues form, you're expecting, okay, there it is. There's a turnaround. Okay, nice. And but he just throws in stuff where it's like, oh, all right, that's cool. He keeps it interesting, and not that other stuff is boring, but it just like it doesn't fall into and here this comes type of thing. It's like, oh, there it is, like a little shift or adding a beat in a bar or something. It's like, oh, cool, all right, and the band is tight, to pull that stuff off. It's just phenomenal album, very very cool.
Yeah, so Phillip is a big like vintage gear person, but in particularly really like strats and fuzz faces. But he has like a 66, something like that, 65 Strat. That's like his main guitar. I'm probably wrong on the year, but it's like a 60s Strat, I'm pretty sure. And he must be kind of sweaty or whatever, like, but the way he plays, like, there's a certain way that the paint comes off. Like, it almost looks like it's relic, but you can see over the years, like, the transformation of this pretty white Strat that like just like everything just starts chipping off of it. So there's like almost no paint. So it's a fairly recognizable Strat actually, because of the weird pattern that his hands made on it, just from playing it. And I can't even think of anybody else's Strat that's ever looked like his. So the reason we're bringing this up is a few years ago we found this post. And so apparently Phillip had his guitar at Fender because they were doing a repair or something, or like a fret job, or I don't know what it was. Maybe, I don't know, whatever, they were fixing something. And then later that year at NAMM, they had these like they had this like relic Strat that was like identical looking to his Strat. Like the same like wear marks and everything, but they didn't call it like the Phillip Sayce custom whatever. They just made it as part of this series. And it's like anybody who walked by would say, "Wait, oh, you guys are doing a Sayce signature, sweet."
Yeah, not only that, it was like $6,000 or something.
Oh, it was more than that, I think. Yeah, it was expensive. Yeah, and and they didn't like no credit to him, and like it was like the same. I think like everything was the same as his. And then they said that it wasn't his.
And he's like, here's a picture of mine. Here's a picture of your copy. Tell me what's going on here.
Right.
It's like, granted, it's not the same woods nor made in the same year, but pretty much everything else is identical.
It was like, it looked like an intentional like copy job.
Yep. And they did the same thing to John Bonamassa.
Joe right? Bonamassa, yeah.
John.
I don't know if it was, I think it was Gibson, I think, that did that one. Same deal. They like had one of his like main guitars. I don't know too much about that story, so don't quote me too much. Or maybe it was Epiphone, or I don't. Somebody made like a relic looking like exactly like his guitar in the same way, and then like no credit at all like to him.
Yep.
So,
but the question is could you copyright something like that?
Of course you can't.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like I think it's dirty that they did it. Absolutely. But the other half of me is like, how do you be like, I'm going to copyright the wear and tear on my guitar? Or,
I mean, you can't even copyright this. This is a Telecaster, really, but this is not a Telecaster. And I love this guitar. It's my favorite guitar that I own. It's a beautiful guitar. But it's also kind of, like, we can get into this a little bit. It's kind of a weird industry where everybody just copies everyone.
Yeah,
Like
but that what happened with the Gibson lawsuit with the Les Pauls? Why they stopped Ibanez? Like
it must have been because they were close enough. I think like they had everything was the same, like the headstock and the shape, and so like
okay,
here the headstock is not the same.
yeah,
There's differences. Like this little
yeah, it's
nook,
a little thinner. That's thinner up there. Like it's not as pronounced as the Fender one would be.
and then yeah, there's just like little subtle different. You have to have so much different. I think all the clone places, so to speak, know what the limit is, like how close they can get without being the same thing. Um, yes, I think that's what happened with the Ibanez one.
It was just too exact.
Like it was like yeah, it was like somebody copied it and chiseled out the same thing. Apparently, those are great too. Like if you can find any of those
Oh yeah, that's what
lawsuit
I was gonna
ones.
say, and they did a better job than Gibson actually did. So
Yeah, no, it was just happened to be like a sort of an let's say unfortunate time in Gibson's history where they weren't making like super high quality stuff at the time. And you could argue whether they are now or not. That's a different story, but that that was sort of a low point. So there was an opportunity for a lot of people just to come in and sort of swoop in. But it's hard to like. Could you imagine if Toyota just made an exact replica of like a Corvette? Like it just looked exactly like a Corvette, had a V8, everything. You know, like everything was down to the thing where they, and then they sold it for, a quarter of the price.
oh man,
Like,
that
would that be okay?
that is the question.
Or if they like all they did was slightly change the headlights or something, like, well, our, it's not the McRib, it's the MacRib.
Yeah, or Mr. Pibb. It's not Dr. Pepper, it's Mr. Pibb. Mr. Pibb didn't go to college, but he's just as good. So yeah, I mean, it happens all over the industry. I think it waits for like 10 years, but with guitars, it seems to be different to an extent. I mean, the Strat and the Les Paul have been copied to the nth degree since they even came out. It was like, boom, ES35, 335, same thing. Any major guitar that's been up on stage has been copied
Right.
very quickly. And it's a matter of what level of, like you were saying, like where does it become a copy that is permissible and a copy that's not permissible? Like how much percentage of features need to be different in order to get away with that? If there is such a rule, I don't know. I'm just kind of like talking.
Well, it's like ethics though too, right? It's not just
Oh yeah,
the
no,
rules.
I didn't even get into that aspect of it.
Yeah, right.
I haven't crossed over that line. It's like, in one sense, it's almost like that whole thing with Vision, and when he was talking to himself, the ship of Theseus. It's like the museum.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the museum. It's for anybody that doesn't know.
WandaVision reference.
Yeah, WandaVision reference there, but it is a legitimate philosophical question that they'll ask. Like, if you have the ship of Theseus in a museum and we start to replace all the rotten wood with replacements, eventually the whole thing gets replaced. So the question is it the ship of Theseus or is it a replacement? Because it's the exact same, but with new things. So
yeah, which part's real?
Yeah, what is the real one is the question off of that. And that's, I guess I can kind of apply to the guitar realm with things in terms of copying. So it's like, where do you get to the point of now it's definitely infringing on copyright? But having that tuner be that 16th of an inch off is totally fine. It's okay. It's okay to do that. I don't know. Maybe it's much
so more. Yeah, the advocates of, I guess, the cloning industry will say, well, it exists because Gibson and Fender have quality issues. So the reason why the smaller boutique builders can do what they're doing is because there's a desire from the industry, from people to want more consistency, to want better woods chosen. Like when you buy a Fender, you don't necessarily like. Do you believe that somebody was going like, oh, we have 300 pieces of wood and I picked the best one,
Oh yeah. Or is it
like it's more like, oh, we had 300. Okay, we got to use all 300 before we move on to the next batch,
Hmm.
So you just never know what you're gonna get. Where like I know like K-line stuff, like you like spend a ton of time like finding which woods and which suppliers and like matching them up and then figuring out the different neck pockets slightly so that it resonates more and all these like there's all these little like improvements and there's that sort of expert touch put on at the end to make sure okay is this live up to my name. I don't want to put this out there if it's not going to be good enough.
Yeah.
Where
Sounds like
that doesn't
a sweet spot.
happen right in those other ones.
No, no, I completely agree with that. I think it's, but then you have the accessibility issue, because not everybody's going to have a K line for their first guitar because of the investment that it'll take compared to a
Well, and he
Strat.
doesn't have the capability to put out that many instruments, right?
Yeah, and I don't think he would, but I think that's the other underlying point that I was pushing at, or that was like sitting in my head, is that even at that level, I don't think he'd go like, oh yeah, let's just do our batch of like $400 guitars and get these done, and then go back to the other thing. It's kind of compromising, you know.
Sure. I
Uh,
mean, you
like those
see
guys that we were
even
looking
like
at
a
today, the Kuhn, is that how you say it?
Murray
Murray
Coon. Yeah,
Kuhn,
I think
like
so.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because great looking guitars, awesome, at least in looks, and I like the physical descriptions that he's giving them. It's like we've done this and this, and it's cool. The tech guy in me is like, all right, sweet, new guitar technology in a guitar. Well, let's see what it sounds like, and it makes you want to buy one. It really does. Especially, I like the idea of the straight
Well, some
string.
people, but yeah, keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, the straight strings to that, kind of like breaking a little bit of the mold to see where we can get the guitar in its shape to be better, through different manufacturing techniques. And I don't think he'd go with like, oh yeah, it's time to do my lower end version, which is one of those things that I thought was interesting when Breedlove decided to do it. Like I would have never suspected Breedlove, out of all the boutique guitars that were out there at the time, to be the one to go into mass manufacturing, like Taylor did. And they both suffered for it to an extent. Like they got a huge following, and they're all out there. And some of them are actually, don't hear what I'm not saying, they're not lousy instruments, but they suffered a little bit in the quality from the top end. Absolutely. Like I think so.
Sure. Right.
Uh, because I mean, and I'm not trying to like hype mine up, but the one that I got was like, it's no dovetail on the headstock. It was like one solid piece type of thing. So way, way, way before Taylor became Taylor guitars. Like they are now. But I also happen to be the biggest guy to put my students into the Taylor Academy guitar as soon as they ask me, like, which one should I get? I'm like, for the money, these guitars are incredible. Like, if you're looking around $500, buy a Taylor Academy. I had a student get one, and it blew my mind. And ever since then, literally every student that has picked one up has been the same quality. So
Yeah. I mean,
that's a
they've
nice
got
factor.
obviously manufacturing of guitars cheaper and better, and all those kind of things are happening too. So
Yeah.
yeah. You ever watch those Josh? I'm sorry, I'm kind of switching, sort of, but those Josh Smith interviews he does. If you've ever seen this,
Mm,
he
no.
does these things though. He's like these 10 questions that he asks everybody. And it's kind of
Okay.
cool because he has great guests, and they're good questions. And I can't remember what they all are, but they're all good questions. But one of them is, would you rather have
Yeah. I think you told me this one, but
like
go ahead.
would you rather have a great guitar and like a crap amp? Well, let's say like not a great amp, a couple $100 amp.
Mhm.
Or would you rather have? I'm sorry, did I say a crap guitar, a great guitar, and a crap amp,
Yeah.
and then or have
Yeah.
a crap guitar like a $200 whatever guitar and a great amp? And I'm curious what you would say. I'm suspecting you would say great guitar.
Yeah, but I think that's mainly because I'd be thinking of a great acoustic and I wouldn't care about the amp. If it was a strict electric world that changes, like, let's narrow it down. It's got to be electric because we're doing an electric
Yeah, of
guitar
course. Yeah.
amp, and so we'll just do that. Then it makes it a little bit tougher. And I know the answer that one of your guys said to it. And after hearing that, that totally poisoned the well, so to speak. And my own thing is like, actually, that does make a big difference. I'd probably go with the crap guitar and a better amp, just because of the sound. And because whoever it was that you said answered the same way that I did, his reasons were great. He's like, the amp is like the guitar sound. Like if you have, it's like, what's the way to put it? It's like putting. Oh no! It's like putting Russian caviar on gas station sushi. If you'd have the great guitar and the lousy amp, versus the other way around. Well, whatever that would be in that type of scenario. I don't know. I'm running out of analogies tonight, but you know what I mean. It's like
Sure.
if the amp is going to be the mouthpiece of it, you at least want it to say something intelligent. Consider and pronounce things correctly, versus the other way around of being like having an incredible idea but not being able to verbalize it. If you're gonna try to anthropomorphize the the guitar and the amp there, without getting into the whole phallic ideology or anything like that.
Where are we going?
Yeah, that was the old joke with the Dusan Bogdanovich, because the guy's just a mind job. Like he's so brilliant.
Is that how you say his name?
Yeah.
How did you say it?
Bogdanovich.
Huh. Why did I always think it was like Bogdanovich or something?
Because that's the way I used to pronounce it all the time. But I'm pretty sure it's Bogdanovich.
That sounds more appropriate.
Yeah. But he he's all into that like type of thinking and so on. But that doesn't really matter to where we are, what we're talking about now. Anyways, so I would pick the cheap guitar with the amp.
Yeah, well, I would definitely pick the amp. Have a good amp. The guitar would be a lot less important, probably, in the electric world. Though It stinks when you have a guitar. Like, I'm trying to think, like, what guitar? If I had like a shredder guitar, like EMGs, but I had like a red plate, it would be such a bummer. It'd be it's such a buzzkill. Even though those guitars play great or whatever, you wouldn't be able to use like anything from the amp because it's like the pickups are so hot.
Yeah, the output of those pickups would just make it so that it's kind of flat in terms of the response.
Or I think like, okay, well, those guitars play well, but let's imagine like part of it being a crap guitar is like the knobs don't work that well, so it's either all the way on or off. So like you wouldn't have any control over it either. So it'd be such a bummer in a lot of ways to play that. But if it's like Mexican Strat kind of thing, I'd be happy to play that.
Yeah, that's exactly where I went. It's like Squire's Strat. There we go. That's what it is. They're reliable. I remember when I worked at Guitar Center many, many, many moons ago. Some guy was in there trying out Squire Strats to pick the best one, and I'm like, dude, it's a Squire Strat. There's not going to be tiers of Squire Strats in this store, man. But okay. And he sat there for a good 2 hours and then settled up on one, and I was like, okay, that's fine, whatever. If you think it sounds better, more power to you, bud. So, and though, I mean, I think there's a little bit of something to that. Like when you have a mass manufacturing thing, sometimes you just get gems that come out. It's just the way that it is. I mean, there's your average, and then there's going to be ones that are above it.
Are you familiar with Jack Pearson? Do you know that name?
No.
Great guitar player, like country kind of guitar. I think he actually used to play with the Allman Brothers at one point.
Okay.
So he basically went deaf. Fantastic guitar player. Plays Squire guitar. He's been playing it for like 25 years. That's Squire.
Great.
But it's funny. So people will be like, see, like Jack Pearson plays a Squire and he's amazing. Like you don't need a great guitar. Like that's kind of like the rationale that starts to happen. But he does play like boutique amps, They're like really high end amps. And also to your point, what you just said was like, it's possible that the one he got was like that diamond in the rough.
Yep.
Because he could get any guitar he wanted, He'd probably get it for free because people would pay him to use it effectively. So it's not like he couldn't get one if he wanted to. I think he just found the one where he like. I think that's even the story. He's like he went to the store and he picked one off the shelf and he's like, "Whoa, this guitar's actually really nice. I'll take it." And then just became like his thing.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I've had another buddy way back when I was in Buffalo, Mike DeSantis, I think was his name. Great guitar player, great singer, like the whole package. And he had this $300 Washburn that, you know, for all intents and purposes at that level at that time, most of those were like, here's your plywood with a nice covering, and there you go. It's got electronics in it, so it makes it more expensive. But the thing sounded like $1 million. Like, it sounded fantastic. And he did some slight upgrades with it. He had locking tuners put on it and like a decent pickup system. But even then, like, it was clearly like a phenomenal sounding instrument, just as it was. So it's like, hey, you never know. Try something cheap. I went to the Guitar Center the other day to find one of these things, this boom stand, and nothing Lefty in the entire store. I was like, oh, this is just...
Oh yeah, not even. Yeah, that's the thing. Like lefties, we never get to do that. We never get to be like, "Oh, let's try this Squire that's over here." Like,
yeah, it's like, well,
there's like 75 of them. Let me pick one and see if any of them are any good. Like, we never get to do that.
Yeah, someday I'll hit that store up in Texas. Hopefully with money,
a couple grand.
Yeah, at least a couple grand. I'll probably just head right to the PRSs more than anything else. So,
I mean, you said something and I was gonna reply about it. I don't remember what it was now.
I was talking about no left-handed guitars in the Guitar Center. Then heading down to Southpaw, a couple grand.
It was before that.
I don't know. But we got a little bit off the topic, as usual. But that's fine. I think we need rabbit holes till I start to fill up this list of topics again. So,
no, it was still interesting that. What was I gonna say? Darn it. Oh, well, let's move on.
Yeah, moving on a little bit. Okay, so we talked about the Sayce thing, we talked about the Fender copy, then the guitar copying thing, which I still think, it's interesting to see nowadays, though. There's a lot of original models coming out. A whole lot. Like, compared to there was 30 years ago, there's so many different takes on guitars. It's great. Maybe it's it's clearly the internet that has gotten these other guys, manufacturing-wise, at least a platform.
Sure.
But I think that's awesome just to look at it, because now like Strandberg's a huge name, and you got this company, the GOC guitars, which is starting to take off, and they
Strandberg not keeping up with demand opened the door for companies similar to them.
Absolutely. I mean, but Kiesel's doing it, and they're really getting a huge following. Like Carvin.
Yeah, the rebrand of Carvin was interesting.
Yeah, that was. I never expected that to happen, and all of a sudden, flip Kiesel, and now it's like boom, everybody's buying them. I keep kicking around the idea, but I don't know. I just couldn't do it with them.
I feel like they used to make 3 different Holdsworth models. They only make 1 now. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I feel like I need to do it just because, I don't know, it's Holdsworth. Like, so that's the one I keep thinking, I really need to just order one of those. Plus it'd be really nice for traveling. Because it's a small headless guitar.
Yep. I mean, this one I actually have a Strandberg gig bag for that one. And that's what they told me to buy. They're like, honestly, to ship a gig bag to you from here, you're better off just buying another one over there. It's going to be cheaper. I'm like, hey, I appreciate that honesty. I mean, granted, if I would have saw that price, I would have been like, yeah, no, I'll just get it over here. Thanks. And so he's like, yeah, just the Strandberg one fits totally fine. And there it is. I feel somewhat official carrying that thing around. I mean,
man, I've always been so cheap with cases. Though I recently, when I went to New York last time to play, I did get a mono case, which is super nice.
Yeah.
But I'm always like really like, do I really want to spend more than like $30 on a case? Like
$30 on it. Let's go down this rabbit hole. Now let's talk about guitar cases for a second, because you get your beginner guitars that come with basically a plastic sleeve, that go over top of it, which if it's an electric guitar...
Which is like half my cases.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's like, I got that Strandberg case, which I think was like $150 just for the gig, which was
man.
it was expensive, but it fits perfect and it's padded right, and it has neck support, so I'm pretty happy. Then I have a Fender gig bag for this guy, which was still probably $100, like because it's a Fender gig bag versus a no-name one. Then I have the Taylor case, which is like your typical thing that can kill somebody if it drops on them. Then I have another similar one for my other classical, and then I have the BAM case, which is like that was $750 for the case.
That's a cool case, though.
That case is awesome. It's like carbon fiber, Kevlar, super light, super durable.
Yeah.
You know,
I actually shot it at him once because he said something it was inappropriate. And it bounced right off.
That's why I keep it on my back, just for those dirty left-handed guys that come after me. So but yeah, that case is like.
I would say most of my guitars have hard shell cases because they came with them, but I never use them. Like, it's such a pain to use a hard shell case. Like to go to a gig with a hard shell case. I'm already carrying all this. I'm carrying all this other crap.
Yeah, exactly. Like that I can get. There was no way on God's green earth I would ever put one of my classicals in a gig. No, like because I fall over and the guitar is ruined. You know what I mean? So that's a thing that kind of stops me from using any type of gig bag on an acoustic. Almost. Like I would probably put my Taylor in one of those styrofoam gator cases things that are like gig bags, but they're padded.
Yeah, have you seen the mono cases?
Yeah. They have acoustic.
Yeah. Because the one I have is for my my Eastman.
Okay.
So it's like a dreadnought style or size case.
Mm-hmm.
So it's great. It's like I think you could probably throw the Eastman out my second story window and onto the ground and it'd be fine. as long as it didn't hit like just perfect or something, I think it would be fine.
So
but actually, on the bottom they have like this really thick rubber.
Yeah, the rubber feet thing. On there.
Well, it's not even feet. It's like the whole bottom of it's rubber.
Huh. And so, do you put it in, like, does the zipper go down to the... Yeah, okay.
Here, I'll just grab it.
Yep.
Look at this. We've got modern technology. I can just walk.
Why use your feet, dude? Come on. Nobody walks anywhere anymore. DoorDash that. Yeah, I'd like a DoorDasher to come to my house and pick up my guitar case and bring it to me. Oh, yeah, look at that. Dang, that's huge.
What's that? Yeah, it's big.
Huge case.
Yeah, so you can see, like, it's like nice
firm
thing. But yeah, the whole bottom's like this rubber.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah. I can't remember how much. These are like $200 or maybe.
Yeah, $200. I was looking at one for the GOC.
It was way nicer than I expected, actually.
Oh, I expected that to be for a gig bag to cost $200. It should be nice.
I think maybe it's $150 or something. But yeah, it
started around $200. I remember because I was looking at them kind of recently. And then, but even then, like even with that $750 guitar case, the BAMs, which if you want a super light case, it's totally worth it with a huge amount of protection. You can go up from there to a Carlton case, which is like, starts at $1,000 and is custom built to your guitar. And that weighs a ton. Like the Carlton cases are not lightweight cases. They're like 10 to 15 pounds, but they're what's the homogeneously sealed? Is that the right word? Hermetically sealed.
Yeah.
And it's just like they're absolutely built like to take. If you could run over it with a tank almost, and it would be fine. And the same thing with the Accord cases, which are kind of the same thing, but the Accords I think look a little slicker and weigh a good amount less. Karura, Hoffman's, all those are around the same price point and doing the same thing. But even that, like, I remember hearing a story of a classical guy. I think it was a Damon that broke, but he had it in an Accord case or one of those super high-end cases on a flight. And when the plane took off, it was fine. But when it moved the guitar to the back of the plane, but when it went back down, the guitar just went poof the entire length of the plane, and the impact, it just shattered it on the inside. Like
Are they sure that's why it did it?
That's it with the story. I don't know if that's exactly it, but
So
either way, I mean, there is a physical line of how much force something can happen to where the insides just go no
yeah,
matter
but
what.
what usually happens. So if you're playing, if your guitar is gonna go under the plane, you gotta loosen your strings
Hmm.
because the pressure changes like crazy under there.
Yeah. Yep.
So if you
Yes.
don't loosen your strings and you keep them tight and they have to go under the plane, you might shatter your guitar. And it's not because it fell or got hit or that the people like threw it off the plane or whatever.
Oh, this was definitely like it had the marks of this hit something really, really hard on the outside of the
So
case.
oh, so the case looked beat up.
Yeah, the case had scuffs on it and long marks that were not on the case previously.
Well, that it had marks, but did it look shattered?
No, that was the thing. The case looked fine. Opened the
Hmm.
case, guitar.
Oh,
So
so I wonder if that's a little bit like they don't make cars like they used to because
maybe.
they're like death traps, right? Because if your car hits a tree and the car doesn't bend, something has to bend, and
Yes,
that's gonna be
exactly.
you.
Yeah, well,
So
that's my point with the internal physics of the case. It's like the case didn't give anything, so it had to, that force had to go somewhere. And if that guitar is sitting in there, and maybe if there was like a quarter of an inch of space for that guitar to just move, but
yeah,
considering the amount of inertia, bam, that's it. Either way, it's always better to take your guitars on the plane. Always, 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 always. I was
oh
so
man, I fly a lot and I always take a guitar, of
yep.
course.
See, I would
And
feel a lot safer with an electric. No offense to electric players,
oh, this
but
is
those
I
things are
would
like tanks.
yeah. So I never let them put them under the plane though. Like
Yeah. Oh,
never.
yeah, I wouldn't do it
And
either.
I play and I never take like not never. If I'm playing gigs, I take a nice guitar. If I'm just going traveling for work and I'll take something that's not nearly as valuable just in case. But they always hand me the gate check thing and I'm like, "Oh, thank you." And I put it in my pocket.
Yep. Yep.
And then I get on the plane and like the people will be like, "There's no room for this." I'm like, "Oh, I'll find some room." And then I do.
Yep.
Almost all the time. Or if I don't, they'll be like, I'll just put it in the closet. Like they kind of like, okay, thanks.
I am never more nice than when trying to get my guitar into a plane. It's like my mom told me that because she works for the airline. She's like, if you're nice, people will help you. If you end up getting elitist and getting snobby, you're gonna lose your support just like that. You're gonna lose your help. And so I'm always super nice. And I've had generally fantastic experiences outside of once, and that's where I should have not been nice and just waited for another plane. But
I
whatever.
definitely had most of the time people were really nice, but occasionally you get people that are like, that's not going on this plane, like before they even look, before they see
Yeah.
anything else. And then I used to feel a little bit bad about it because it's like, wow, I mean, you might be preventing someone from putting their baggage up there, and then they have to gate check their baggage, and you kind of can feel bad about that. But if you travel enough, you start to realize that people put like everything up there. Like
Yeah. Oh
anyone who
yeah.
gets on the plane kind of first, they'll throw all the stuff you're not supposed to put up there,
Hmm.
and they put their work bag and this bag and their jacket and this other thing and that other thing up there. So as soon as I started noticing like that the first, I know one bad deed like turns into another bad deed. But it made me feel like less like there is enough room for everybody's bag and
Hmm.
my guitar.
Yep.
If anything should have to come down, it shouldn't be the guitar. It
Yeah.
should be the random purse, like the 30 purses that were put up there, as
Yep.
well as their baggage, as well as their jacket, like, and everybody put their personal bags up there. Like that stuff should come down first, in my opinion,
No, I
because you
completely
can
agree.
put it under your seat. So you're,
Exactly. That's exactly it right there. And the funny thing is like, my classical's not a huge guitar. Even in that BAM case, it's not even that big. So I put it up there, and you can still fit a bag next to it and
yeah,
on the side of it. It's like, okay. And some of them, some overhead bins, I can even stand this thing on its side, and then it's like there's nothing in there.
yeah, right.
So it works out really well. I like that. But yeah, I always get
I
paranoid.
also I noticed. Um, so I travel enough that because for my work that I do have like the gold member or whatever thing, that lets me get on the plane early if I want to, which I hate getting on planes early, by the way. But if I have a guitar, which I always do, then
Oh,
I get
okay.
on a plane early, because I want to get a spot,
Yeah.
But where was I going with that? The oh, you'll see there's certain people like they'll see the guitars up there because I'll be one of the first people that's in the thing, and they'll be like, oh, guitar. They go to the next
Hmm.
shelf. They won't even put anything in there. But then there's some people who are like, I hate guitars or something, and they'll like shove some. You're like,
You sure you don't want to
it's
just get a run down the aisle and then try to force it in
yeah,
there? That's fine, or
it's the
what?
same as the people that when they see like cyclists on the road, like most people like generally like, okay, I'm gonna slow down and kind of get out of the way, and then some people are like, this is my road, you shouldn't be on my road, and then
Yeah,
they'll,
they
like
get
get
as
as
close
close
as
as they can and like speed up and like maybe even come over a little bit. Like some people are just wired wrong, I think.
Yeah, my father-in-law is a cyclist, and he's had a couple of accidents, but the one thing that he said, he's like, if you're ever cycling and there's those white lines on the road, he's like, it might seem like a jerk move, but don't stay on that don't go over the white line onto the shoulder, like if you're cycling. Stay on the road. Because if you go on the white line,
You have
cars
nowhere to
think
go.
they have the space to just go. And so you're more likely to get hit if you're on that side of it than if you are more in the street because
Yeah.
they make a wide girth. Most people, outside of your garbage people, like you were talking about, will make a wider girth around the cyclist, and that's fine. It's like it doesn't bother me that much. Yeah, whatever.
I think some people get like actually mad.
Yeah.
So
Oh
I think
yeah.
it's the same people that get on the plane and they see the guitar and they're like, screw the guitar, and they're like, I hope it breaks.
I hate bicycles because they look like a guitar.
Yeah, like
Somehow.
people. I mean, there's people that get on there like, bikes shouldn't be on the road. So I'm gonna try to get this bicyclist off the road forever.
Oh yeah. Yeah. On my
I don't get
bachelor party, during my bachelor party, my father-in-law broke his hip cycling. Like, so I ended up going into my bachelor party late, and Julie's like, go, 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 go. I'm like, I'm not going to leave. Your dad's, like, literally about to go in for, like, life-changing surgery. I'm not leaving right now. Come on, get it to whatever.
Yeah.
So, but she was also forcing me out because a friend of mine flew from California to surprise me. I didn't know that he was there.
Oh yeah.
So she's like, you should go.
Yeah, right.
You get out there. Oh, okay. But whatever. So yeah, they all kind of lump in the roadway and airplane Karens or Carls or whatever it is for that.
Oh, is Carl the male version of it?
I don't know. I'm just kind of going with.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to, because one of the guys I travel with, that's his name. I'll have to give him crap for it.
I hope so. There's
Hey,
Chad. I
Carl.
think it's Chad. It's Karens and Chads.
Ah, darn, bummer.
No, Chad.
That doesn't help me.
Whatever. Either way, you know what you're referring to. You can still use Carl. Why not? Whatever, Carl. Quit complaining. Ugh.
Talk to the manager, Carl. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't even know the Karen thing for the longest time. I just missed the reference. Now it's impossible to miss it, but
the haircut thing is what does it.
yeah.
Maybe that would be a great band would be like, instead of Flock of Seagulls, like Flock of Karens, and all have that same bob haircut.
Oh, there you go.
Walk out on stage and just complain to the manager. Like, that's your whole stage routine. You walk out and do nothing but bitch at the sound guy, and then get mad at the venue operator for everything, and leave the stage without never playing.
It's true.
There goes my quick viral fame. So
True. Well, you'll never get a gig. I guess you don't need gigs anymore. Not that there is
yeah,
any.
exactly. I mean, you could get one gig, one, and then after that, your band's finished. Oh, that would be priceless. So, I wonder how that would take off. If anybody wants to do that, let's form a band, Flock of Karens.
You gonna cut your hair like that?
Just for one gig for viral fame, maybe. Maybe just to do it, like have a bunch of that would be precious, and it would have to be like a live reaction. Like, you'd have to do it as a joke, but nobody else be in on the joke, and just really sell it. That would be super. Oh my
Well,
god.
especially if you get like sponsors, so somehow work it out. So you, like all these sponsors, like churches and schools and
Oh geez, Now I have a new life goal. You realize that? You know, the ADD or whatever it
Not to
is.
mention American Airways or whatever.
Yep.
American Airlines.
Oh yeah. Oh, that would be good to have the band take a plane flight and just it's almost like Spinal Tap 2.0. You know, it's a flock of Karens. You know, just document them forming the band, flying to their first big show, and just totally being certain words we can't say on the podcast the entire time. That would be. I would pay to see that for sure. Sign up for HBO Max for the movie one off and then be done.
There you go.
That would be amazing. This is gonna keep going through my head for like I'm gonna.
Yeah, there you go. Write it down.
Yep. Or don't write it down so that the world's a better place for never having experienced it. One of the two. Oh man. So the other topics we have here are either guitar music is guitar music dying, and then that whole fiasco with Small's Club in New York City. Depending on how long we want to take this conversation.
Yeah, I might stay out of that one for now. But the is guitars dying? We haven't done that, have we?
No, but the question is do we have enough time to even broach that subject now? Or
Why don't we broach it?
Broach it and then come back to it?
Yeah, we can always come back. It'll be a consistent theme probably, or a constant theme.
Oh, really? A
theme.
podcast about guitars and guitar music? That and guitars.
So there's like a dichotomy in this. So is guitar dying? Allegedly, according to the guitar industry, there's never been like more guitars sold than now. But that feels a lot like one of those stats that it's like playing with stats. Like, hey, there's more guitars being sold now than the 1960s when rock and roll was taking off. Well, yeah, but there's a lot more people.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I would agree that these stats are skewed.
And there's a lot more guitars you could buy. So, and people, and they're cheaper in a sense. So, like where maybe then you'd only have one guitar in the house. If you have a guitar player in the house, they have 20 guitars. So there's, so is that, it feels a little bit like one of those kind of things. Like, we're playing with numbers a little bit. On the other side, you have the popular music where it's basically void of guitar. And if it is in the music, it's as an effect. It's like it's not a lead instrument in any of that. It's just an effect, effectively. It's like some kind of texture that can be used. But it would just be like adding violin or something, or adding synth sound or something. It's used in a very similar kind of way. What's that?
If it's even a real guitar, it's usually just a patch or something.
And then some people will say, well, look, John Mayer or something's really popular. Well, John Mayer's 45-ish? I don't know, 50?
I don't know.
He's probably not relevant with the younger crowd at this point. I can say that.
Not like he used to be, but that goes with every band. It's like all of a sudden, poof, that younger draw tends to disappear. But that also gets into the whole record company thing and everything else. Though I would argue the counterpoint that I don't think that... I'll agree that the stats are predominantly skewed because it's taking a multifactorial problem and looking at one aspect of it. In the sense that there's a lot more as to why guitars are being sold right now besides it just being popular.
Yeah.
It's population density, cost efficiency, spare time,
COVID, right.
There's a lot of things that go into it. So we can't just take the industry thing, and of course the industry is going to be the biggest trumpet of itself, period, because we're selling more guitars, we need an investment to do the next round.
Here's a question for you.
Wait, let me finish my point real quick.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
So the other thing is I don't think the guitar music is dying, because as much as this is kind of like the 80s in a sense of like virtuosity's back on the map, guitar wise, it's playing levels have gone up. It's not the same control aspect over the radio that it is today. Like back in the 80s and 90s, it was like you would hear stuff on the radios and then you'd go buy the CD, or you'd show up at a club and see a band and get it. There wasn't a whole lot of easy ways to promote yourself. Now it's like you can be online, do the Facebook thing, and you can have a valid career and never break onto a huge radar. You don't need...
Or write a song.
Yeah, but that's my point, is that you have all these somewhat, at least financially, the artistic merits. Let's just leave that to the side for the second, but at least financially, there's a plenty of opportunity to get enough of a niche where you can survive comfortably, maybe not like super rich or buying airplanes or whatever, but at least to be able to support yourself if you hit a certain level of positive feedback in that space. Whereas back in the day, it was like you were either going to make it at some degree of national level, or you were done.
Do you
Like,
think that's true? I don't know if that's true.
I mean, in the sense of like, well, I mean, yes and no. It's like,
Because you could make a living, a pretty good one, as the local musician then,
yeah, but I'm
which
talking
you
just
can't,
band.
just playing in bands too, not playing, not teaching, not just playing in bands, make enough to buy a house and do all that stuff and not ever be famous, which is completely impossible today.
Okay, that I will totally grant you. Yeah, because I remember like back in the '60s or whatever, you get $100 a night or whatever, and like now you get $100 a night. But back in the '60s, $100 had a lot more weight to it.
Right.
It was the same as getting like 700 now. Um,
Yeah, then you and that there's there was gigs where you played 7 hours a night or whatever,
do multiple gigs, go to one, then pack up and go to the next one.
Yeah.
I mean, where we're at in Ohio is not necessarily a town that could do that. New York City, you could do that, and I think Cleveland, you could do
I
that.
don't know about that either.
Well, I mean, I've watched internet videos, but like,
Well, I'm saying so. I one of the things I remember when I lived in New York is like, you got your $100 a gig in Ohio. It was the same $100, like literally $100 for the same gig in New York, but New York costs 4 times as much money. So it's
yes,
like, well, that $100 goes even less than the $100 does for us.
mhm.
So it's kind of, it's not like you get paid $800 a gig there to compensate for what you would get for $100 a gig here.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, maybe it's the pricing structure or who knows? I mean, it's like, again, it's a multifactorial problem. But going back into whether or not guitar music is dying, I think that like with all those factors in it, I don't think that it's going to be the same type of pushback that it was from like the '80s hair metal to the '90s grunge to kind of like push that out of the way and then the swing into pop type of thing. I think that everybody has their own niche and they can stay in it as much as they want. They don't have to listen to anything else. Like I can't remember the last time I've had the radio on, and I'm talking like 15 years. Ever since I got my first CD burner, not iPod, but CD burner, it was like, I don't need the radio anymore. Done.
Sure.
It's like whatever it acted, and that did it. And then I got the iPod, and that totally killed it. It was like,
Yeah, I
I have
think though
an entire
you're
library.
thinking like a guitar player though.
But I'm also thinking like most people do, because I don't find like people go, oh, I'm gonna just try this other genre out, or what was that song on the radio? Like most of the
Yeah, but
time,
that's a bad thing.
I th-
In
I
a
think
sense,
yes and no. I think it's a matter of like it's a bad thing for discovering new artists, and it's a bad thing for artists that are outside of your normal perception. But at the same time, you'll get those recommendations from friends anyways. It's like, oh, if you heard this person, no, well, check them out. Oh, okay, and they listen to them or
oh
whatever.
man, that's a whole
Or you
nother
can make
topic.
Yeah, but I don't. The reason that I don't think that guitar music is anywhere near dead, nor on the way out, is because of the idea of a self-sustaining cell versus having to be plugged in with the greater music industry. It's like
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's true, but like the internet is enabled every kind of niche ever you could think of to
exactly.
have a way to make money, but that doesn't mean. I mean, I guess in some sense, it means it's not dead. But like we were just saying a second ago, could you make a living just playing gigs?
No, I don't think so. Not without teaching to supplement it. Not here.
Yeah. So that is gone. I mean, some people can do it, right? But it's really a lot harder than it used to be to do that.
Usually it's dinks, double
Yeah.
income, no kids.
Right. I never heard that before.
Yeah. When I said that to my father-in-law, he's like, "Oh, I'm a dink." I'm like, "Dude, you have 9 double income 9 kids. Never mind. So I'm like, all right, you win on that one.
Nice.
But yeah.
Okay, so the question I was going to ask earlier that I can't believe I remember.
Oh yeah.
Which was, do you think that saxophone is dead?
I mean, I know it's a leading question because my first impulse would be like, no, but that like right off the bat, just because of the way that thing is, mainly because I listen to Chris, like Chris is out, Chris Harold. It's like clearly not. It's been pushed wherever. Would I go to a club to see saxophone? No, like not exactly.
Would you anticipate that you would? So
I would be open to it. I'd go see Bobby play. I'd go.
There's a reason that I'm asking this question. Because prior to guitar, saxophone was like the most popular instrument. It was like the guitar, like in the 40s, 50s, or whatever. Like that's the thing that people wanted to play. It was like the coolest thing you could buy, you know. Mm-hmm. Where from like the 60s to 2000, guitar was like the coolest thing you could buy.
Yep.
You know. But like it's still around, but obviously not like, well, unless you're a sax player, not the coolest. Like it's not perceived as like the coolest thing ever. And guitar is very much like that too. It's no longer got that, like it does to us. We think it's cool, but like the general population thinks that a synthesizer or something like that, or you know, some other things are way cooler instruments than the guitar. Drums or even.
But how much?
So, and will it ever get back to where it's the number one, like, coolest instrument you can get?
See, I think you're right on a couple of those points. But the only place where I would diverge is to factor in, like, as soon as you said, like, well, what is considered the cool instrument? I think it's extraordinarily subjective as to what those people are doing. Because I don't...
Well, it's always subjective.
Oh, well, I know. And I'm not knocking your point. I'm not attacking your point by saying, oh, that's subjective and it doesn't matter. That came out wrong. It was more of the, you know, if you're going to play something, you're going to look for that particular thing, that's a given. So let's take that off of the table.
Yeah.
And let's put out there.
So guitar players and synth players and sax players and stuff who all love those things don't count.
Yes. So my point is, like, how many seasons of American Idol are we at right now? Or how many seasons of, you know, America's Got Talent or whatever? 10, 15, somewhere in there. But I think the cool thing is the in thing musically is just like a voice thing. Like I would say
that's probably always been true though. I mean, that was true even when guitar was the cool thing. Being a singer was probably still cooler.
It's shifted from band orientated things to like celebrity it's branding, from a band, which they can have their own brand, to more of a like, I want American Idol, this is my brand type of thing. You know, and I'm not knocking anybody that builds their musicianship brand. You have to have one. That's just.
But do you think that wasn't? I mean, like Frank Sinatra, Barbara Streisand, like I mean.
But like Sinatra,
Nat King Cole, like
crooners, and that type of thing. You know, it was popular, and then it kind of went to the people that like the crooning thing. Same thing with Streisand. Same thing with their particular styles put them into the thing, because nobody's listening to Michael Bolton nowadays. It wasn't like a huge fan of that, you know, romantic style of ballads like crazy.
Yeah.
You know, why should I change my name? He's the one who sucks. So the Office Space reference, such a great movie. But so even in with the vocal thing, the genres kind of pull everybody apart a little bit from the mass appeal that happened when this radio was central. It was like new artists would come out, and then everybody would know that particular artist because it was being played on the radio, and that was a mass communication thing. Nowadays, it's like I have no freaking clues in the top 10 or doing anything, and I don't really care.
Yeah, but I mean that's been true since you started playing music too, right? I mean,
yes and no.
I don't think you count. I don't think I count either. That's why
No. I get your point with that, but it's like I would still be exposed to the top 10 a lot more, even if I was playing guitar back in like 90s than I was as soon as I was able to concentrate my library on something and never had to interact with the outside world. You know,
But don't you think that's a? So I would still contend that's probably a bad thing.
see, I think it is and it isn't. I think it is in the sense of exposing yourself to new styles and being able to grow in terms of hearing new aesthetic things. I'll agree. But I think that it isn't in the sense that it's like if you really like something and you want more of that particular thing and different subgenres of that, being able to sit in your own kind of thing is like, oh, this is kind of cool. Now, that also can be easily
Oh,
tempered
I
with
totally agree that it's cool, but
that.
it is a bump. So I think it's almost like you're digging the hole of what guitar has though, which is now we're at today's now, which
Mhm.
is the general population, unless they're just listening to like classic rock or something. And classic rock includes Nirvana.
Yep. Yep.
um, they're not seeking new guitar music.
Hmm.
And because we live in this world where you don't have to, or you're not it's not forced on you to hear it in a sense, because you don't have to listen to the radio. You can stay in your little bubble. You're just not ever going to.
Yeah.
So therefore, guitar could be dead in a sense. I'm taking a little bit of a leap there, but I think you
Yeah.
get what I
I hear
mean.
what you're saying, and that's the whole horse sound effect was me being like, that's a valid point. I think that
There's
that
always
is
going to be fans of virtuosity and all that stuff, right?
yeah, but
That's always going to happen. They're going to be fans of, and I think those people that like virtuosity, it really has nothing to do with the instrument. They would enjoy watching Paco de la Cia as much as they want to see. Why am I blanking? You know, Rubinstein or something like that. Like it's an enjoyable thing to see people perform crazy stuff on instruments, and
Mhm.
I think those fans always exist, and they'll always exist. They're always going to be like, oh man, you've got to see this person play guitar. Then the next week it might be drums, or the next week it might be violin. Um, but anyway, I mean, it's like that's always gonna. So there's always gonna be those little subgenres. Certainly, there's always gonna be fans of um, prog metal and fusion or whatever, but it's such like it's so small of a niche. I mean, you're talking like thousands of people in a world with billions of people, you know. So
see, I don't.
what would ever make it dead? Like, is dead mean like no one even remembers what guitar is? Like,
Oh well, I mean,
there was an
clearly
instrument once upon a time called the
the guitar. I think I'm pronouncing that right.
yeah,
So
like the instruments they find now, you know, from like
yeah,
the 1500s or something, and they're like, this is a precursor to guitar and had 74 strings and
clearly this was based off of a dare. So, I bet you I can get one more string on this. I bet you can't. There's thou shalt not, and I thou shall, and did it or whatever.
there was some cool guitar, like it was like a guitarish thing that was apparently really popular for like 50 years in Italy. I saw a video about it the other day, and it was almost like an auto harp push button sort of thing.
Hmm.
And you could like, and it was like folk
I think I know
singers.
what you're talking about.
It was like folk singers that would use it, and it was like a pain to
Pretty sure.
tune. Was it the no? It was the one that had like those crazy pegs to tune it with. Did you see that?
It sounds so familiar.
Anyway, it was like, and what threw me about that was it was like 50 to 100 years that this was the most popular instrument in Italy. You know, which guitar hasn't even been popular for 100 years. Not
Hmm.
really. So
Yeah.
you're like. You're like, oh, we really might be coming up to an end. But anyway,
Well, to counterpoint that a little bit, this that comes and goes with flows because you know you have like when Regandi was around, virtuosic classical guitar player. You know the guitar was dying, and the precursor to the accordion was taken over. So he quit playing guitar and started playing that. You know,
what year was that about?
Regandi was uh, late 19th century, early
Okay.
Romantic. So you had like that notion of like guitar was super popular and then it waned again, and it really
Yeah.
stayed down. You know, even with Barrios and Targa and everybody else, it was like it was there, but Segovia brought it back up to where it was like a more renowned instrument. And then, obviously with the electric thing, everything else piling on top of it.
When is the timeline there? I wonder when did Segovia become known?
I think it was in the 50s.
Was it like before the Beatles?
Yeah, absolutely. Now I'm gonna look it up. So.
Well, I mean, I know he was born before then.
Oh yeah,
but
I know
was
that.
he known before then? Like when was it like, ooh, Segovia is the man? Like when were people painting Clapton as God, and then somebody scratched that out and no, Segovia is, or maybe it was said Segovia is God, and then somebody scratched it out and said Clapton is.
Oh, he's 1909 is when he had his first concert.
Well, that doesn't mean that he was popular though. I've had lots of concerts and I'm not popular.
Okay, by the time he was by 1923, he was getting pieces commissioned, so he was getting popular.
When did he die? It was like the 70s or something, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
Or was it later than that? In the 80s?
It was late. It's 87.
Yeah, so that's what I still wonder though. Like I don't remember ever seeing anything, but some of it has to do with age. Like young Segovia, I've only remember ever seeing like old Segovia. So I wonder when he became like mainstream, like a mainstream name that was known. Because he's not like Regandi. He's not like he's a different animal than all those.
Everybody, holy crap!
So when was he on like the Today Show or something? When was he on Johnny Carson? The equivalent of Johnny Carson.
I'm trying to see if he like television wouldn't have happened until like after World War II. He won a Grammy in '58. Let's see.
And I wonder how many. That's another one of those weird ones. Like there's people that win Grammys all the time, but you don't know any of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially like who won the classical guitar Grammy this past year? Was there one? There probably isn't even a classical guitar Grammy.
Man, he knew like all these huge composers. That's kind of cool. Yeah, they don't really say when he kind of like.
That's also that's something we should research. We should do like official research, like, or maybe we should have like one of your professors come back in. Like,
yeah,
does Jim or Steve know the history of these things?
That was released guitar solos in 1949. Is his first album that came out.
Okay,
in that regard, I think that's probably a pretty big accomplishment because in the 40s, that 49 to put out an album was a hell of a lot more effort.
Well, yeah, for sure. But then it's like, when was the shift from classical music being the sort of in vogue thing to not being popular and something else supplanting it?
That was happening like as soon as the radio.
So the big band era was started in the 40s. So
earlier than that, because the 20s had jazz and Joplin and all that.
Yeah, I guess it would have been a little earlier than that. Yeah, I guess it's more like 20s.
Yeah, I would say like
but I'm imagining that I don't know. I'm so out of my element here. Like I'm trying to.
Like when did classical stop being the dominant genre?
Well, but even like I don't want to say like a relevant genre. It's not. It's not relevant at all today.
Yeah, it's not in the same. It's definitely not in the same category.
The only place that it's still relevant is movies, really.
Yes, soundtrack is, and even then, like some stuff is getting knocked out for more of a techno thing or more of a guitar-driven thing.
Yeah, I think you could almost argue that some of the best stuff now is some kind of hybrid of all those things.
Oh, absolutely. But I personally think that's freaking great. I love it when you have these distinct genres come together, create something new. That's awesome.
It's hard to imagine if Stravinsky and those people were around today, that they would just stick to like acoustic instruments. It's just not very likely, I don't think. Same with Bach or Mozart, any of them. They wouldn't have just stuck with acoustic instruments.
I don't know. Well, given what they could do with acoustic instruments, I would think they would have the need to branch out super much.
Well, but then I mean, Bach played organ, right? I mean, that's like that was like high tech. That's like high tech.
He played everything, and not only did he play everything, he was like,
yeah. What I spent that was like his day gig, though, right? Was the organist thing? Like, so he was obviously like into technology.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I'm not poo-pooing your point at all. I agree with your point to an extent, but you know, I'm a bit of a Bach fanboy, so knowing like the details that
which is part of the reason I'm saying it.
Yeah, just to get a ride. Well, it's working. Gosh. You know, but you like cannot, he virtuosic on just about everything. You know,
you're not allowed to say his name.
Particularly organ. But also, like, organ manufacturers would shake when he would walk in to test their organ. Like, if they put a new organ in and they hired Bach to test it out, the builder would be like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
Because it's like, this guy's going to really push it. That's what the toccata and fugue and D minor is the big organ tester. Just like, let's put this thing through it. Anyways, sure. I'm rambling. So, but he was also, like, known to be virtuosic at violin. More than capable on the wind instruments. You know, it's like he played everything.
What's your problem, Adam?
I'm clearly don't have or whatever the hell that was going around back then at the time.
We should. Maybe it'd be kind of interesting to do like a history sort of thing, like pick a person like Bach, and just talk about their upbringing a little bit. Because I actually don't know. So was he like a child prodigy? Like, we're way off topic, but.
No,
those kind of questions would be kind of interesting to hear about, because I don't recall hearing about him being a childhood prodigy like a Mozart or Beethoven or something.
No, it's not the same level of childhood prodigy, but the talent was recognized. The thing that Bach didn't have going for him is his parents died when he was like 7. So it was right after the 30 Years' War, so there's tons of famine and everything else. So at the age of 7, I'm almost positive of that. There's a great book, John Elliott Gardner's Music in the Castle of Heaven on Bach. I mean, it's thick. It's like 500 big pages. It's great. If you want to know about Bach, that's the one to do it. And you have to listen to his catalog while he's going, because he's always talking about the pieces, you know, as matching it up with the periods of his life. Awesome book.
Yeah.
But so he went in to live with his older brother, who had just gotten married at like the ripe old age of 19 back then. So, you know, his brother had just gotten married.
Of course, he was 19, but his wife was probably, what, 11?
Somewhere, I don't know. I don't remember his wife's age, but probably comparable. At least like 12 or 13. It's something. But when your average age is 30, you know, that's what you get. So he was living with them, and he would, like, sneak out. Like, his brother forbade him to look in the music books that his brother had. Now,
that's a good way to make musicians.
Yeah, exactly. So, on a side note, we have records of a Bach being a court musician from, like, the 12th century on. Like, in some court in one of the royal houses of Europe, a Bach...
Yeah, you were saying something about that.
So, it's like, it was a familiar thing. If you were a Bach, you were playing music, which... worked great when there wasn't a 30 Years' War. So, but anyway, so he's living with his brother, and he's like sneaking out to grab sheet music for violin, you know, and he would hand copy of it at night and via candlelight just to get an idea of how the music worked together. And then he'd put it back and so on. And eventually his brother discovered the works and burned them all. Like, you know, all
that's pretty cool.
Which is like, that's kind of a dick move
yeah.
on that one, but Bach being who he was like, okay, whatever, and he did it again. You know, sure. it didn't stop him in the least.
So he had the stubborn spirit.
Oh yeah, he spent several nights in jail because of that stubborn spirit. You know, like they would tell him to write something in a certain way. He's like, yeah, I'll get right on it. I'll do it exactly like you say. Oh, here's my interpretation of it. Sorry, there you go. You know, he disappeared to study with Buxtehude and said he would be gone like a month, and showed up 6 months later, and they threw him in jail for derelict of duty of his job, because he was hired by the state, not just like the church he was playing in. Yeah. So it was like a big, you know, whatever. He ended up getting out, obviously. But that was like the 3rd time it was in jail.
It must have not been that big of a deal in a way to go to jail.
Like it was because he didn't get paid and he had like kids. So
well, I'm not saying it's not like People must have gone to jail for all kinds of random weird things.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, there's other instances in
You weren't
jails.
allowed to quit your job, or you missed
No,
school
that's
one day.
exactly what it was.
Yeah,
Like you said, you were gonna be here. You can't be. This is dereliction of duty or whatever. I'm just using that term. I don't think that's what exactly they called it. I don't remember that section
because
of
it
the
was
book.
in German.
Yeah, probably. The beer flow Steinel something. I don't know.
Beer,
Uh,
beer, moss beer.
yeah, but the funny thing is Bach really loved his alcohol.
Yeah,
Like he wrote. We have a letter from him. Like one of his, I think it was one of his brothers, or something, sent him like a barrel of wine as a gift, and they would tax it by taking the wine out. Like they like
nice.
open it and take a cupful, and that would be the tax that would go to whatever. And he's like, "Don't send me any more wine. They take too much of this stuff. It's like I get a barrel and it's like half empty by the time it gets here. What the hell?" Um, we have an actual letter of him written about that, just bitching about that thing, and it's really
That's
kind of
funny.
fascinating to be like, he definitely liked to drink. He clearly loved his wife, with 20 kids. That'll do it. And then I mean, he would teach all these kids at St. Thomas and still write a full cantata for their service on Sunday, and then have all of his children hand copy them along with himself to be able to
Nice.
get performers like right before the thing. So if you weren't a competent reader, you were not working for Bach like right away. It was like, and it's the same things that we get now that you spend like a month learning. He was like, here you go, play it. Okay, sure. So yeah, he's just a fascinating character. Like all the details that we have of his life,
Yeah, I'll have to look into it more. So,
sporadic and yet at the same time dense, depending on what time period it was. Like, because
sure.
one last quick story is he went to jail for basically calling a student completely idiotic and incompetent on his instrument, and so the student challenged him to a knife fight. And
Oh,
like saw
nice.
Bob walking around in the public square and like drew a knife on him, and everybody lived, but the police came in and said, well, Bach, you had a knife. He's like, no, that's not my knife. It's the other guy's knife. And it took his cousin testifying in court to be like, no, Bach was defending himself, for them to let him out of jail. Go figure. My students get on me for being a little intense at times. I'm not that intense.
You need to start bringing a knife.
Yeah. Did you practice? Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, you don't need that finger, clearly, because you're not practicing. So.
To finish us off here, the barrel thing reminded me of the story, which is nothing to do with the guitar. But so
Hey, what?
there a few years ago there was a whiskey fire. Don't you remember that down in like a Bourbon Trail area? I think it was. I don't know if it was Jack Daniels, but it was someone like that. Maybe it was Jim Beam, I think. They had like a really bad fire at their location. Anyway, there was a news article and they were saying, well, there's been some whiskey fires over time. And they were talking about a whiskey fire that happened in Ireland, like in the 1800s or something.
Mm.
And it was really bad. And like 10 people died. But they said none of the 10 people died from smoke inhalation or from the flames. They died because the whiskey was like pouring in the streets and they were drinking it too much. So 10 people died of alcohol poisoning.
Well, kudos. I mean, somebody's got to do it.
It's like, man. It was like, well, this was a really bad one. Yeah, 10 people died on this fire, but not because of the fire.
Not for the reasons you think.
So
Yeah,
they were taking their tax from whoever, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Bach was a rebel rouser. I mean, he was constantly like, every musician complains about church gigs nowadays, and rightfully so for some stuff, because there's things that just get annoying as heck. There's so many layers of things that you might have to deal with. But there's other church gigs that go absolutely great, and I've been lucky and gotten a lot of those. But you read the life of Bach, and it's like, this is nothing new. Like Bach had to deal with the garbage of committees and all this other oversight, like constantly. But he
sure.
just basically like, okay, I'll keep that in mind, and just did whatever the hell he wanted anyways.
Yeah, right.
And then it's like, what are you going to do? Yeah, they already played it. That's all I wanted.
Just wanted to hear it once. Yeah.
So, it's like...
I suspect, though, most people probably appreciated it.
Oh yeah, and well, the other thing too is like they weren't musicians, and he refused to take any writing advice from somebody that didn't know what they were
Yeah.
doing. He's like, yeah, I'll factor that. Never.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like,
like that Amadeus movie, right? Where they're like, yeah, there's too many notes. Which notes would you like me
yeah,
to take away? You know, he's
yep,
like, well, that is the question. Yeah.
yep. That
Anyway,
is the question, but exactly, it's a matter of yeah, I'll factor that in
thanks.
right into my circular file, aka trash can.
Yeah,
So,
that's a pretty like that's totally like a musician scene. Like that was the greatest opera we've ever seen, ever, like ever. Um, but perhaps
yeah,
perhaps
that
it's just
show
a
is
little
comic.
too much of this and a little too much of that. But you just said it was the greatest thing ever.
Yeah. Oh, it's like a friend of mine, or one of my students' mothers. Actually, she painted me and Julie's wedding portrait as a gift. It's awesome. I had it hanging downstairs. But the
Hopefully you're all smeared out and she looks nice.
she did get my thumbnail though. I got the thumbnail. It's like all my thumbnails.
Thumbnail and then smear. Yeah.
It was Jackson Pollocky. So
Yeah. Perfect.
no, it's a great thing. But she was like, when any degree of art, you'll get praised. And she's like, you know what a portrait is? And I'm like, it's a portrait of somebody. She's like, well, it's a portrait of somebody with the nose that's always just that off.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
it's like it's like. Yeah, that quote is like, yeah, that's the way it is with everything musical. You know, you're always gonna somebody can find something to complain about, no matter what.
Sure.
You know, like that reverb is too long. So that's this guy right here. So finding the right tone is
Right.
a never-ending quest. Anyways, so that's this episode.